Welcome! Today we're going to dive into the exciting world of home insurance. And if you're a Gen Z and you're saying, "But I can't afford a home, why do I care about home insurance?" Shut up! Insurers are masters at predicting risk. They will not give you a policy unless they are extremely confident that it will be a complete waste of your money. Typical insurance models have two main requirements. Number one is that risk needs to be predictable. This means that historical data, which the insurers use to build their models, needs to be actually useful. It needs to be reliable. Number two is that policies need to be independent from each other. They can't have correlated risk. If one policy goes down, it can't have an effect on the other policy. An insurance company can handle one of these rules being broken without going bankrupt, but if both of them are broken at the same time, it's going to be difficult for them to stay afloat. So it's a good thing we aren't experiencing a series of climate-related catastrophes that are destroying large groups of dwellings at a completely unprecedented scale and frequency. That would be bad. Insurance is an entirely statistical industry that preys upon the worst fears of its customers. You've really got to set aside your morals if you want to be one of the people saying, sorry, your daughter's double lung transplant, not medically necessary, so you're not covered. And it covers pretty much every single industry that you can think of. Your health? You need insurance. Your car? You need insurance. Your pet? You guessed it. Back in the 1950s, they even had Cold War fallout insurance. Can you imagine? Actually, that might be kind of useful. And this wonderful industry underpins many of the capitalist institutions that our society runs on. And it was going great for everyone until the Earth started to heat up. Oh yes, it's impossible to miss it. All the nerds are saying it. We humans and our endless consumption-driven choices are destroying the planet. Once-in-a-lifetime events are happening every other week. Carbon is being trapped, the polar caps are melting, sea levels are rising, the extremes are becoming more extreme. But there's probably nothing to worry about. I'm sure our governments are fixing the problem fast and efficiently. Yeah, there's no eloquent way to put this. We're all gonna have to say goodbye to some of our favorite land masses. I hope you all weren't too attached. But before that, there's another problem some of us are gonna have to deal with. The increasing uninsurability of areas particularly affected by climate instability. Unfortunately for us, in our modern society, housing is more of an investment than a basic human right. But there is an expectation that when you purchase a house, its value won't decrease. It will at least sort of stay the same. And this is why we don't balk at the extortionate prices that people are forced to pay for housing, because at least you can recoup that investment when you choose to sell. But what if some hooligan got angry at something I posted online and, very unfairly, decided to burn my house down? Well, it's a good thing you were insured. There's a slim chance of this happening, but in the event that it does, that's what insurance is for, right? It's another fail-safe for the enormous investment that you are making. Not only can you recoup your money if you sell, but you can also recoup your money if disaster strikes, which, I'm sure you can imagine, would be particularly useful if you lived in a place that was at risk of frequent hurricanes, fires, tornadoes, or tsunamis, right? Yeah, that's not going to work. The actuaries tell me that insurance companies actually like to make money, so giving money to people is ideally something they want to avoid doing, if they can. And a place that is at risk of disasters is also at risk of costing the insurance companies money. And frequent disasters actually break those two fundamental rules of insurance models that I mentioned earlier. Because climate change has made these climate disasters so much more common, historical data is no longer accurate, and it can't be used to make predictions about the future, because we've never seen this kind of frequency for disasters before. It's totally unprecedented. And climate disasters are often not localized to one singular policy. They tend to hit entire towns, which breaks the second rule, that policies need to be uncorrelated. If one house is hit by a flood, it's highly likely that their next door neighbor will also be hit by a flood. And so the risk that they're taking on one particular house is now correlated with the risk that they're taking on other houses in the same area. And as I said before, an insurance company can handle it if one of those rules is broken. But if both of them are broken, they will probably go bankrupt. So this leaves insurers with a choice. help the people who are most likely to need their help and lose money. Or blacklist the areas with frequent disasters and not lose money. A minor tangent here, but take State Farm. Their slogan is, like a good neighbor, State Farm is here. What the hell does that even mean? They're an insurance company. They do not want to pay you money. And what kind of neighbor abandons me because my house is about to get knocked over? Isn't that the whole point? You're supposed to help me out. They are not your friend. They are so desperate to build a reputation as a company that is trustworthy, friendly, cool. But they are none of those things. Insurance companies do not want to help you. They will do everything in their power to not help you. Now before you say it, I know. Insurance companies are a business. They need to make a profit, I get it. But there is something a little bit unsettling about an industry that is built upon being there for you at your worst moments, choosing not to offer their services to people who are most likely to have worst moments. And since our climate continues to change, these events are only going to get more frequent and are only going to occur in more locations. These disasters will destroy houses, lives, livelihoods, and insurance companies, I guarantee you, are going to try their absolute best to pay no one. Say a flood rips through a town, destroying 20% of the homes, 1 in 5. That 20% of people were covered by insurance, so they get an insurance payout to cover the loss of their house. And they decide, I've always lived here, my family's always lived here, this is where I work, this is where my friends are, I want to rebuild here. I don't want to move somewhere else. So they will rebuild. They'll get another insurance policy, probably at a higher cost, and they'll stay right where they are. But then, say another flood comes along, and again destroys 20% of houses. All of a sudden, the houses that have just been rebuilt have now been destroyed again. And the people will say the same thing. I've always lived here, I love this place, I don't want to leave. I'm going to rebuild. But this time, the insurance company will say, No, we're not doing that again, mate. So now the homeowners are left with a choice. Do they take their insurance payout and rebuild again, knowing that another flood could hit them any time, and this time they won't get a payout? Or do they pack up and leave the place that they've always lived and always loved? The choice is really tough. And when a place becomes uninsurable, you see a domino effect. It's often a requirement of banks that in order to give you a mortgage, they need to be sure that you can insure your house, because that way they know that their loan is protected in the event of your house being destroyed by a disaster. Same thing that you want it for. So if insurance companies say that an entire area is no longer eligible for insurance, that means it's probably not eligible for mortgages either. And this locks out a lot of prospective buyers because you need to pay in cash. I certainly don't have $1 million cash on hand. Do you have $1 million cash? Next question. If people aren't eligible for mortgages, that means they can't buy houses. And when there are fewer buyers, that means there's also less demand. And less demand means prices will come down. And if prices are down, that means less property taxes can be collected. And a lot of local governments really rely on property taxes to do anything. So before you know it, the local governments start to erode away, and then the entire city is wiped out permanently. And this isn't just speculation, by the way, but if predictions aren't your thing, and you still think I'm being dramatic, then let me take you back in time to 1992 AD. Florida, a tropical paradise, the gem of the East Coast. Beautiful beaches, comfortable temperatures, the mouse. What's not to love? Oh God! I'm drowning! I'm drowning! I'm drowning! Yes. Unfortunately, all of the things that make Florida such a wonderful place to be also make it a hotspot for hurricanes. Yes, even the mouse. And in 1992, Florida was devastated by the Category 5 Hurricane Andrew. It caused a staggering $27 billion in damage. I know that's only like half a Twitter these days, but back then it was a lot of money, I promise. 11 insurance companies went bankrupt. Are you crying?
No!
A bunch of insurers also left Florida forever, and as I alluded to earlier, the housing market started to fall. Banks were panicking. They had handed out home loans, and with the housing market beginning to fall, those loans were now worth more than the houses were worth. Have I heard this story somewhere before? the Floridian government had to come up with a solution, and fast. So they decided to start the Florida Property and Residential Casualty Joint Underwriting Association, now known as Citizens Property Insurance Corporation. That's much better. It's a state-run insurance company. It's designed to be used as a last resort. If no one else will insure you, then they will. And it was able to be popular because it charges below market rates, which makes it pretty cheap. But having low fees and not saying no to anyone means that it can run up huge deficits. And the way that it covers those deficits is by tacking on fees to every person in Florida, whether they're with the public insurance or not. It's not hard to see that this could be pretty dangerous, so the Floridian government have tried to depopulate it in the past. They tried using financial incentives to encourage private insurers to take on more risk in Florida. But then Hurricane Ian hit in 2022 and wiped out most of the insurers that had agreed to take on extra risk. And now we're... Seriously? And now we're here, where Citizens is the largest insurer in Florida and is growing at an alarming rate. The banks are saved, the housing market is still breathing, but now the Floridian government kinda have a time bomb on their hands. It would only take a couple of hurricanes to bankrupt them, and probably everyone in Florida. And they've introduced the opportunity for moral hazard. This is one of my favorite economic concepts. It's the funny effect that occurs when the government tries to protect people from risk and accidentally ends up making them take more risks than ever before. And I have a really elegant analogy for this. Imagine you were going to a casino and they had a big sign out the front that said, "One night only, we'll reimburse all of your losses." How much would you gamble? I'd gamble my entire life savings! Put it all on black! Let's go, baby! And that's precisely what investors see in state-run insurance. Not only is it cheap, but it's guaranteed. And it's state-run, so it's not allowed to fail. If they run out of money, they will take money from the citizens to reimburse me. How wonderful! Investors don't have to care about risk because they know that whatever risk they take will be covered. Investors know that the government will just bail them out if they take risks. I swear I've seen this somewhere before. There's a national program in the US called the NFIP that subsidizes insurance policies for areas that are affected by floods frequently. And there are houses that have been rebuilt literally dozens of times. In general, I'm all for social programs. I mean, I live in socialist hell Australia, right? But this isn't really a social program, is it? It protects banks' mortgage values and it protects the portfolios of investors. If you own a house, it might benefit you indirectly, but in the event of an emergency, it's not the banks or the investors who are paying. It's a flat fee levied on all the citizens. It's you. It's a shining example of the capitalist mantra, profits for me, losses for thee. And it's another reminder that even the most capitalistic states in the US of A still love to socialize risk. But what are we supposed to do? Do I have any alternatives? Yeah, though you're not gonna like them. Option 1. We could share the love with state or federal run insurance. Pros: it's easy, it makes the banks happy, and it's popular with people who don't know how to read, but it doesn't really fix any of the problems. Kind of just pretending that you fixed it and hoping that you don't live long enough to see the consequences of your decisions. Option 2. Eliminate Floridians. We could forcibly relocate people who live in high-risk areas. What did you think I meant? But it's not very popular. People were highly resistant to wearing a piece of cloth on their face to protect the most vulnerable members of their society. I doubt they'll be particularly receptive to being told to move across the country because there's a chance that their house might be destroyed in the future sometime. And it's also logistically quite difficult to do. You need to find them a new job, a new home, new communities, keep them close enough to their family, all while moving them to a completely different city. It's not necessarily easy. Option 3. Climate adaptation investments. We could spend money on flood levees, fire breaks, build some houses on stilts maybe. Making the vulnerable areas less vulnerable is the idea. This is obviously the worst option. Spending money with no ability to get a return? Since when do fire breaks generate passive income? I prefer option 4. Do nothing. Yeah. I don't live in Florida. Why should I care about those losers? Let's treat climate refugees the same way we treat normal refugees. And trust me, I'm Australian. I'm an expert. What's that? Your house burned down? That sounds like a you problem. Maybe you should try grinding harder. So we have to choose between locking in policies to socialize the losses of private risk and hope that none of us live long enough to see the consequences, or we force huge swathes of people to relocate from the place they've lived their entire lives because an insurance company decided they don't want to offer them policies anymore. Or we convince governments to spend on preventative measures that aren't even 100% effective and provide no benefit to shareholders. Or we could pretend the problem doesn't exist.
Climate change is increasing wildfire
which
risk.
would basically have a little more beachfront property. Well, the industrial polluters account for
All of this with the global warming, and a lot of it's a hoax. It's a hoax.
Believe that, oh, well, I guess 97% of it, all scientists believe that
He said the concept of global warming was created by and for the
Who am I to
Chinese.
question that? Well, it's a problem right from the start.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a great idea.